Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AMN Healthcare International Show, Onwards and Upwards, everything an international healthcare worker needs to know about living and working in the United States. I am your host, Danielle Chasin from AMN Healthcare International, where we have direct hire and staffing. So we are very excited for today. We have our immigration update with our top immigration experts. So very excited for that. Let's bring on our international experts and let's get started. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Hannah. How are you both doing? Happy New Year.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Well, in the spirit of New Year's, if you are watching from around the world and you would like to share what your New Year's resolution is, share it in the chat. Let us know. We want to know where you're watching from. We want to know, is this the year you're going to take the NCLEX? Is this the year you're going to come to America? Let us know what your New Year's resolutions are. My New Year's resolution is to spend more time with my family. So I would love to hear what everybody else's New Year's resolutions are. Let us know in the comments. If you have any questions for Chris or Hannah, our seasoned experts, you can share them in the comments. So let's get started with some quick introductions. I know you are both seasoned experts on this show, but for anybody who might be new, let's just do a quick intro. So Chris, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm Chris Masilla. I'm an attorney with Masilla Unkenholt, and my New Year's resolution is to drink more champagne in 2024.
I love it. That's a good New Year's resolution. Who doesn't want to drink more champagne?
So far, so good.
Well, that's good. No dry January. No. And what about for you, Hannah?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Harris. I'm an attorney at Corporate Immigration Partners. And my New Year's resolution is to get outside a bit more and enjoy the fresh air. Although I will say we have a lot of snow coming down right now in Cincinnati. So I'm happy to be inside today.
Well, that's always a good New Year's resolution. I always have the same one. Take more walks, enjoy nature. Definitely very important. All right. Well, thank you both for being here today. For anybody who is watching and is interested in coming to the U.S. with either direct hire or staffing, you can apply on our website and our recruiters are on hand ready to help you. That's amnhealthcare.com/international. All right, Chris, would you get started for us? Tell us, what is the January update? We had some positive movement.
Right. Yeah. So we had some good news. The visa bulletin continued to move ahead, which was welcomed. We saw the Philippine and all other EB3 move ahead 1 month. It is now September of 2022, or at least will be on the 1st of February. So that is good news. We've heard, or at least I've heard here at the office, that Manila scheduling of visa appointments is going okay. So that's good news. I do know for our Kenyan watchers that there has been a lot of difficulty getting appointments there. I was actually in Washington, D.C. I got in late last night. I was there Tuesday through Thursday. Did take a meeting with the State Department. They are committed to try and allowing those appointments to move forward at a much better rate. So hopefully we'll see that in February.
Okay. Well, that's positive news for sure. We'll take any positive news. So I see we have a question from Angie Scarlett, and I know it's kind of a tough one because it's hard to predict things, but I'm sure everybody's curious what both of your thoughts are. So Angie Scarlett says, hello, do you think we will continue to progress throughout the next new year, or there may be a retrogression ahead? So I'll let each of you answer. So Hannah, you want to go first?
Sure. So I think first off, it's very hard to make any type of prediction because we simply don't know exactly what the Department of State is going to do until they issue that visa bulletin. But I will say what we have seen in January and then the most recent bulletin that came out last Friday for February is that we have still seen some positive movement. And I think kind of what we've seen so far this year is that it's likely to continue to move forward at a kind of slow and steady pace. And I still think we're going to see those movements more on a quarterly basis. But I do think it's positive that we're, still seeing a little bit of movement. But, as far as, how far ahead it's going to move, I think that's a bit hard to say. And we'll just kind of have to wait and see what these visa bulletins, say when they're issued monthly.
Good advice. Good advice. Chris, do you echo that? Anything to add?
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with Hannah. I think it's hard to predict. I guess the one thing I'd probably say is that while it wouldn't surprise me if it does move ahead steadily over the next few months, I would expect that the last maybe 2 or so months of the fiscal year, which would be August and September, I would expect it will retrogress at that point. Having said that, nobody should get anxious about that. That's just the end of the fiscal year. And that's common as they use the last visas of the fiscal year. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it moves ahead a few months, maybe even into 2023. Maybe that's a little too optimistic in the next, 4 to 6 months. But but again, I mean, I think the top line headline is ultimately who really knows. So, we often say here, Danielle, you don't want to keep an eye on those kinds of things, but to overfixate on that is really just not a good and healthy use of your time. You've got to control what you can control, and what you can control are things like passing the NCLEX, finding a good employer, passing your English fluency exams, these kinds of things. And I can tell you, as someone who's been doing this for quite a long time, the visa bulletin will become current. Now, if you're an Indian national, this isn't really a great answer for you, because 10, 12, 15 years is just incredibly long. That's the bad news. But for the rest of the world, frankly, an 18-month retrogression, which is about what it is now, is just like totally normal and fine. I wouldn't think that wouldn't impact my life at all. And whether it goes from 18 months to 20 months or 18 months to 24 months, I can tell you again, as someone who's been doing this for a long time, it'll be over sooner than you think. So control what you can control. Keep an eye on these other things like the visa bulletin, but I wouldn't get too over fixated in the month-to-month gyrations up and down.
Good advice from Chris. And like we say on this show, if you're a first-time watcher and you go back and watch some of the old ones, we say control what you can control. Take your NCLEX, take your English exam, do everything that you can in your power. And then once you've passed the NCLEX, find an employer and get filed. That's how you get your place in line. And we are filing you right now. So please, we're filing cases every day. Get your space in line. amnhealthfigure.com/international. Our recruiters from both our staffing and our direct hire wing are waiting to help you. So please apply today. Okay, so let's take some more questions. So we have a question from Sorep. Sorep says, if you have a previous priority date with a different employer, will this be recaptured with my new application for a new employer? Hannah, you want to go ahead and take that one?
Sure. Yeah. So what is really nice is that you can use priority dates that you got on an earlier petition. So if you have a copy of that previous I-140 approval notice that has your earlier priority date on it, that would be used in your new petition with your new employer just to recapture that earlier priority date.
Okay, there you go. So that's good news for you, Sorep. So let's take some more questions from the comments. I see we have Naki saying hello. We have Trudian watching from Jamaica. Charles watching from Ghana. Omalade watching from Nigeria. We have everybody watching from all over the world. Hello to everybody. So it looks like Jason has a comment. Jason says, do you have any update with regard to the EAGLE Act? And then I guess similarly, we're going to ask about HWRA. Chris, you want to take this one?
Yeah. So the EAGLE Act, I don't really have much information. It's been moving pretty slowly. For those of you who don't know what the EAGLE Act seeks to do, it's a number of things, but I think the headline on the EAGLE Act is that over the course of about 9 years, I think it is, it will eliminate the per country quotas. Over those 9 years, it will essentially slowly get there until ultimately eliminating the per country quotas, which but unfortunately that bill, or at least the iterations of that bill, have been around for about 12, 14 years. My guess is it's probably not going anywhere, but that's just a guess. I don't have any inside information about that. Having said that, sometimes these things do pop up in various forms, and they're out there. So that's the EAGLE Act. As for the HWRA, yeah, we're up to 20 Senate co-sponsors. We've got 10 Republicans, 10 Democrats. As I mentioned earlier, I was in DC this week, met with, I don't know, maybe 15 or so offices, senators and congressmen's offices. Got a lot of positive feedback. We continue to build up the support for the bill. If you are listening here, especially if you're a U.S. healthcare provider or hospital system and you are interested, please contact me. I can tell you, and it doesn't take a lot of effort, but what we essentially are doing is reaching out to almost any Senate or House office we can reach out to and asking them to join the bill. Again, the bill is, a Dear Colleague letter went out about a month ago. That's sort of like the real kickoff of the approach to attract new senators and congressmen to the bill. Yeah, that went out roughly December 10th or 15th or so, which is a weird time because, the Christmas holiday and the New Year's holiday. But just earlier this week, we had 2 more senators join. My guess is we will continue to add senators and congressmen in the coming weeks. And on the House side, we're up to 35 or so House members who've joined. So that continues to move quickly as well. So 36. Look at that. I'm off by 1 on the House. So so that continues to move forward as well. Yeah, we just had Congressman LaTurner join last week. So yeah, so we're moving ahead. There was a bit of a lull, from roughly December 15th to January 15th, as not uncommon again with the holidays. But yeah, we continue to move forward with that. I'm still optimistic that the bill can be passed, but optimism is no guarantee by any stretch of the imagination. And the only way it gets passed is if hospitals and health systems are willing to call their congressmen and senators and get those congressmen and senators to co-sponsor the bill.
Well, thank you for the update, Chris. We appreciate all your efforts. And hey, optimism is what gets us through, right? So we like to hear the good updates. Okay, so let's look at the comments. Let's see what other questions we have from viewers around the world. So Eli says, my dependent is already DQ, but he is 21 years old, waiting to be current. I'm the main applicant, EB3. Is he safe till embassy interview? Hannah, you want to go ahead and take this one?
Yeah, so because he's been DQ'd and you're keeping the case active, he should be fine until the priority date, becomes current. I would definitely reach out to the attorney that you're working with on your case, because age out issues definitely, need to be addressed, and you want to make sure that you're not going to have any issues down the road. So I would definitely reach out to the attorney you're working with on your case just to make sure everything is in line for your child.
Okay, well, there you go, Eli. So check with your attorney. I think that's also another common thing we always say on these shows. Check with your attorney, check with your attorney, check with your team, check with the AMN International team. Make sure that you are dotting your I's and crossing your T's. We want to make sure you're doing everything correctly. So we have a question from AG. AG says, can we change EB3 visa to a working visa? Chris, you want to take that one?
So it's a weird question. I assume that the writer of the question doesn't mean once you're here in the United States, because if you have an EB3 visa in the United States, you have a green card, and so there wouldn't be any reason to get a work visa. So assuming the writer questioner means, if I have an EB3 in process, can I switch to a non-immigrant visa, a work visa? There's no switch. They're 2 independent processes. So you would keep your EB3 visa going and keep your work visa and apply for a new work visa. So it's not a one or the other.
And is the work visa, would that be like an H-1B visa?
Yeah, I mean, the non-immigrant visas go all the way from A1 all the way down to U, and then they all have iterations like, H-1B, for instance. H-1 is a very common one. There's a number of other ones, though. TN, for instance, springs to mind. So, but yeah, H-1 is a common one that they might, the questioner might be talking about.
So it'll be possible for AG to have an EB3 and an H-1B or a TN or any of the other working visas kind of running simultaneously.
Exactly.
All right. Well, there you go, AG. Some good news for you. All right. Let's see some more questions. So we have a question from Nitsuga. Nitsuga says, if you signed a work contract as a nurse in the US and later on the employer said they were not able to file your I-140 due to retrogression, can you still change employers? Hannah, you want to go ahead and take this one?
Yeah. So, and Chris, you might have more experience with this specifically, but you could certainly change employers, but you would, if they haven't filed the I-140 yet, but you just definitely want to make sure that you read through your contract and, kind of understand what the terms are. But, Chris, I'm not sure if you've dealt with that, probably more than I have in my experience, but you might have something you want to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think you got it right, Hannah. The number one thing you want to do before you ask that question is I would want to know sort of why you would want to leave your current sponsor, A, and B, as Hannah said, is it legally permissible? Have you signed a contract? And then if those answers are acceptable, then I'd want to talk to your attorney or your recruiter to see if your new employer is even willing to do it. Some employers are just unwilling to file a new petition for you if they know you have a contract with a prior employer for two reasons, really. One, legally, they may be subject to some legal ramifications of you doing it. And two, just sort of business concerns, which is if you left the other employer and are coming to them, who knows if 6 months from now you're going to leave this employer and go to another one. And then I can also tell you, this is more of an experience thing. The grass always looks greener. There's always someone who's with another employer whose case is going better, faster, et cetera, than yours. But you need to keep in mind, and I can tell you this from experience, speaking of experience, Hannah, almost always that's not the case. Almost always switching your situation midstream will appear to be shorter and will ultimately be longer. Because one thing that U.S. immigration is terrible about is moving a case from one track to another track. So let me give you an example that's maybe less confrontational. We will often, in fact, it wouldn't surprise me within the next 45 minutes, if Danielle asks us a question and says, I have a National Visa Center appointment, consular appointment scheduled for Abu Dhabi, and but my cousin is in the UK, and the UK cases are moving faster, and so can I switch my appointment from Abu Dhabi to London? And the answer, of course, is of course you can switch your appointment from Abu Dhabi to London. But don't be fooled in thinking that's going to be quicker. It's almost surely not going to be quicker, because what you're not factoring in is the countless weeks and months it's going to take to switch the case from Abu Dhabi to London. You're also not taking into consideration, if it takes 4 to 6 months to move it, who's to say that it doesn't get flipped there? Like I mentioned, I was in a meeting with the State Department the other morning, and they will readily tell you that sometimes they'll have, for a month or two, they will know that an embassy has a backlog, let's say, with nursing immigrant visa appointments. And so they'll put extra resources in my example, let's say London, to clear out the backlog of nursing visas in London. And so you're sitting there and you're saying, oh my goodness, my cousin in London, her case moved very fast. And so I want to move my case. Except what you don't know is after a month or two, the State Department is going to make the decision, okay, let's pull back some of the extra people we had working on the nursing visas in London. And lo and behold, they may move those people to Abu Dhabi to move those cases faster. Meanwhile, so what you're doing is you're chasing what was the situation months ago. You're not chasing the situation where it's going to be. So that's what I would, so I would generally suggest you stay the course on the path you've chosen. I would generally suggest that is going to be the faster way. Now, there's exceptions to everything. But with respect to this question, can you switch employers? Maybe even probably. Should you switch employers is really the question you should be asking.
That is very good advice, Chris, and definitely good things to think about for our nurses. Certain actions that you may have might have more implications than you're even thinking down the line. So definitely good to check with your attorney, good to check with your case specialists before you make any decisions that could, potentially add more time one way or another. So good advice. So let's turn to our comments. If you are just joining us, we are talking about our monthly immigration update on the Visa Bulletin. We'd love to know where our viewers are watching from. So you'll see we have a lot of different countries represented all around the world. We have Emmanuel, who's watching from the UK. Hello, Emmanuel. Sheila, who's watching from Zimbabwe. Mercedes from the UK. Qmars from Pakistan. Salvacion from Philippines. We are covering the whole world, everybody. So good morning to all of you. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be watching from. And if you have any immigration questions, our immigration experts are very well versed and they are here and ready to take your questions. So feel free to put them in the chat. So let's see. We have a question from Chuck Tan. Chuck Tan says, when will be the best time to add a newborn dependent? If I'll add my dependent now, is my DQ date will change, or better to wait for ID than add my dependent? Thanks. PD March 2023, DQ May 2023. All right, Hannah, any thoughts on this? And congrats, Chuck, on your newborn. That's exciting.
Yeah. So, eventually you're going to have to add them at either the NVC stage or at, when you are scheduled for your embassy interview. So, it's kind of as simple as just submitting an NVC request to get them added. And if your case is still at the NVC and your priority date is further out, you can certainly submit that inquiry with the NVC and get them added, just so to get that piece of the process out of the way. Once your case moves to the embassy, when your priority date is current and you get scheduled, you would then have to contact the embassy to add them at that point. So if you still have time and your priority date's not coming up for, a couple more months, you can just go ahead and do it at the NVC stage, but you'll have an option to do it either at the NVC or at the embassy, just kind of depending on where you're at in the process.
Okay, good advice for Chuck, Hannah. Thank you. So there you have it, Chuck. You have some options and you can do what is best for you. So we have a question from Empress. Empress says, do you recruit new grad nurses who has passed the NCLEX but has 1 year acute care experience in med-surg, obstetrics, and psychiatric nursing? So good news for you, Empress. We do hire new grads. And remember, while you are waiting, you're also going to get more experience. So that's a good thing. So if you are interested in applying, our website is amnhealthcare.com/international. And I think right now actually would be a good time to bring up our success path. So if you are watching from around the world and you're starting to think, new year, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to live my American dream. I'm going to take the NCLEX, the English, whatever that means for you. You might be thinking, how else is this process going to work for me? So we have our handy dandy success path, which goes through each step of the process for you. I know there's a lot of information online, and sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming and a little bit confusing. And we wanted to help you distill it down into 7 easy steps. So this is how you're going to come to the US. And if you want to reference this success path, it is on our website and you can always go back there and look. So we're going to briefly go through each step. So step 1 is passing the NCLEX. So that is your golden ticket to starting this entire process. Once you pass the NCLEX, you can move from step 1 to step 2. Step 2 is going to be preparing for the interview. So you are going to get a job offer from an employer in the United States. If you are doing staffing, that will be from the staffing agency, O'Grady Payton. If you are doing direct hire, Kinetics will connect you with one of our many employers all across the US. We will find the right match for you. Once you get that job offer, you will move to step 3, which is the visa framework. This is where we are going to help you gather all of your documents if you're processing with a TN visa, if you're coming from Canada or Mexico, or if you're coming from anywhere else in the world, you may be doing a green card. We are going to help you gather all those documents, work with your attorney, and make sure that we have everything in line. Step 4 is going to be the licensing and credentialing. This is where we are going to help you get your license endorsement, your visa screen, make sure you are applying for everything ahead of time that you need to apply for. We are here with you every step of the way. Step 5 is going to be the get ready game plan. This is when you're going to do your happy dance. You are coming to the United States. Your visa has been approved. It's time to prepare your family, time to do your clinical transitional modules, time to save that money, time to do everything that you need. And Kinetics will give you a long list. O'Grady will give you a long list. So with AMN Healthcare International, you are really never alone in this process. Step 6 is going to be the arrival sequence. So imagine it. It's that moment that you touch down in the United States. Steps 1 through 5. It may look like nothing on this little graph, but that is many months or years of your hard work to get to that moment when you are touching down and reaching your American dream. We are going to have people on the ground who are going to be there to pick you up, take you around the town. That's the concierge service. You're going to have orientation. You're going to have training. You are never going to be alone throughout this process with AMN Healthcare International. We want to make sure you are set up for success. And then step 7, which is enjoy and prosper. And that is what we want for all of our nurses. We have been doing this for many, many years. We have handled many retrogressions in the past. It just means that there's a delay. So control what you can control, get filed, get your place in line, take your NCLEX, take your English, whatever that means to get that 7-step path working for you. And if you are interested in coming with direct hire or staffing, we have opportunities all over the United States. So we're going to bring up a map with all of our different opportunities. So you can see we have direct hire, we have staffing, and we have states that have direct hire and staffing. So lots of different opportunities that you can take advantage of, and you can apply on our website, amnhealthcare.com/international, and our recruiters are on hand ready to help you find your best match. All right, so let's turn to the questions. So I did see a lot of questions asking for predictions. So a little bit earlier in this show, both Chris and Hannah gave their predictions. So if you want to go back and look at that, that would be a good idea. Hard to know, but our guests give their best guesses. So always good to hear their advice. So we have Erfi watching from Manila, Emmanuel watching from Ghana, Vayama watching from Nepal. Wow, we are covering the whole world. We have Thembali watching from South Africa, my home country. Hello, Thembali. So it's good to see you all. All right, so let's turn to some questions. So Arif Faj, and I'm sorry if I am saying your name wrong, is asking, is ETA the same as I-140? Hannah, you want to go ahead and take that one?
Yeah, sure. So I think the question is probably asking, is the ETA form maybe 9089 the same as the I-140 form? They're two separate forms, but both are needed for the I-140 petition. So the ETA 9089 form is essentially kind of a Perm form, but as a Schedule A RN, you get to bypass that whole Perm process. So, your attorney will kind of fill that out with your information, and that is a form that you will be signing. The I-140 petition is a separate form, and that is a form that your attorney will work with the staffing company or your future employer, and they will fill that out, and you do not sign that form. But both of those forms will be filed together with USCIS in an I-140 petition.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Hannah. So there you have it. They are separate forms, but they will be filed together as part of your petition. So there is a good answer for you. So we have a question from Ann PG. Ann says, hello, I am at the NVC stage, paid already, and about to send my civil documents. I was told to refrain from visiting the US at the meantime on a tourist visa as it might affect my application. Is this true? Chris, any advice for Anna on whether she should visit the US?
So no, it's not true, but a couple of points I think are worth bringing up. So first of all, if you have the tourist visa already and you want to try and enter the United States, that's fine. You may actually get rejected or turned down at the airport. And the reason is because you have a green card pretty close, I'm guessing, to conclusion. If you're, at the documentary stage, you're probably, hopefully, close to getting your green card. And so the U.S. immigration officer at the airport might not believe that you're not going to come to the United States and adjust status, which is no, you can't do that. So it's not that your green card will be affected. It's that your attempted entry to the United States on the tourist visa might be negatively impacted. Number one. Number two, don't come to the United States and think that you're going to file an adjustment of status. Again, that's just a bad idea. Having said all that, you can certainly try to enter the United States. Now, if you attempt to enter the United States and you are turned down at the airport, you will have to disclose it at your immigration interview. Then at your immigration interview, because you're disclosing that, the immigration officer may decide to take a second look at your case to see if there's anything else in there. So while there's nothing legally impermissible with doing that, we generally don't recommend that people travel to the United States on their tourist visa. But again, it's not that you can't do it. It's that it's generally not advisable.
Oh my gosh. And by turn back, you mean turn back home? Yeah,
they're going to put you on another plane and charge your credit card for a flight back to Manila or wherever you're from. Or if you're there, they'll just tell you to leave. But yeah.
Okay, well, definitely some things for you to think about, Anne, but at least you have a straight answer and you know the facts and you can make your decision. So let's see. We have a question from Lottie. Lottie says, how much time it will take for the I-140 to be approved? Hannah, you want to go ahead and take this one?
Sure. So I think right now the kind of average posted processing time by USCIS is around like 6.5 months. That's just if your I-140 is under regular processing. There is an option to premium process. Those fees recently increased from what they used to be. They're, I think, now sitting around $2,800. If your I-140 is premium process, then you'll get a decision or an RFE. Some type of action will take place on the application in 15 days. So if you're under premium processing, about 15 days. If you are under regular processing, right now it looks around like 6 to 6.5 months.
And that sounds like a long time, but given that we are currently in retrogression, would you even suggest that you do premium processing? Does it behoove you in any way?
So I don't think that there is a great benefit right now to doing premium processing. Once your I-140 is approved, you're going to move into that NVC stage. But right now, just where the dates are at and kind of what we're seeing, it's not going to be very advantageous to do the I-140 by premium processing. However, I still have companies that are premium processing I-140s to get people moved into the NVC stage. So, I think it kind of just depends on, maybe what your employer wants to do, what you want to do. But kind of overall, I don't find that right now, due to the retrogression, it's, very, very helpful for the process overall.
That makes sense. And the reason why is because your priority date is the date that you filed and not the date that it's approved. So it doesn't necessarily matter when it's approved, correct? It's more just when you're filed. That's how you get your place in line.
Yep. And that's the most important thing, is getting all your documents together so that the I-140 can be filed and you can get that priority date.
All right, there we go. So a good answer for you there, Lottie. So we have a question from Ian Kaiser. Ian asks, hi, I'm watching for Abu Dhabi. Hello from Abu Dhabi. My wife is my dependent who happens to be a nurse as well. If she plans to work as an RN in the US in the future, does she need to have a visa screen certification come our interview date? Would the consulate look for it from her? Chris, you want to go ahead and take this one?
Yes, the answer is no.
There you go.
If your spouse is entering, she is acquiring her green card or immigrant visa in the United States by virtue of being your spouse. She does not need a visa screen, even if she intends to be a nurse.
All right, there we go. Easy answer for you, Ian. Don't have to worry about it. Okay, let's go on. And if she starts working as an RN in the US, will she need a visa screen when she's in the US? Chris?
No, not at all.
All right, there you go. Only need it for the immigration process.
That's right.
So Maboa says, how many months will it take after passing NCLEX? So I think it kind of just depends. I'll take this one, and Hannah and Chris, you guys can chime in. I think, Maboa, it's going to depend how much time you take to interview with an employer, how much time you take to get a job offer, when that application is filed by your employer, and only then does your clock really start running for purposes of immigration. Because once you file that I-140 application, that's your priority date. So if you are wanting to move fast, I would definitely suggest take the NCLEX, pass, apply with AMN and Healthcare International, either with our direct hire or our staffing wing, and get an employer to sponsor you. Get them to file your I-140 application. That's how you're going to get your priority date. That's how you're going to start your immigration process. All right. Let's see. We have a question from Feven. Feven says, do you have any idea how long will visa interview take after Expedited? Hannah, any answers to that one?
Sure. So I think one thing to just kind of consider when we talk about expediting the visa interview. So once your priority date becomes current, you're eligible to, submit an expedite request to try to get your appointment scheduled. However, I think kind of need to think about it big picture, is that there are a lot of other people that when your priority date becomes current might also have a priority date that becomes current. And so if everybody is submitting an expedite request to get their interview scheduled quickly, then it kind of makes that expedite process moot, because there's so many people that are trying to expedite. So I would say first off, you might want to kind of think about whether expediting is actually going to expedite your case in the long run. But second is that these expedite requests will vary, because a lot of this also has to do with case processing at the embassy that you're going through, and when that embassy is able to get you scheduled for an interview and what their caseload looks like. So it's hard to give a specific timeline, because it's going to vary from embassy to embassy, and what their caseload looks like and how quickly they can get you in if your expedite request is approved. So unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for you on that one, just because it's going to be more specific to where you're processing through.
Okay, well, that's good. That's still good advice for Feven. I think, Feven, you should consult with your attorney and figure out if it's going to be the right move for you. So Adam has a question. If petition has been rescinded by the employer at the last stage, which you have reached the stage of having a consulate interview, which was issued by the NBC, what should we do to our, interview? Should we reschedule or cancel? And what is a safe reason to tell them? So I guess, what can Adam kind of do in this situation? Chris, do you have any advice for Adam?
I missed the first part of it. Why does he want to move the interview?
So sounds like his employer decided at the last stage to rescind his petition, or decided not to move forward with him, is my guess. And
yes, so then he should just cancel the interview. I don't understand why he would postpone it.
If his employer rescinded his offer?
Yeah, he's not eligible for a green card.
What do you mean he's not eligible?
If your employer doesn't want to employ you in the United States, you have to start over, unfortunately. You can recapture the priority date, but the visa interview should just, I don't want to give advice on a case I'm not the lawyer on, but just on the simple language that he said, his employer doesn't want to sponsor him anymore. Unfortunately, he doesn't have anything at this point. He needs to find a new employer, file a new I-140, get a new NV, basically do the whole process all over again, unfortunately.
But he will be able to capture his previous priority date, right?
He should be able to. Again, I don't know the case specifically, but he should be able to. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go, Adam. So some things to think about, asking your attorney about recapturing your priority date, because at least that will get you a little bit further in the process if you're able to do that. Obviously, it's going to depend on your specific situation. So we have a question from Paul. Paul says, once a receipt notice is received from USCIS, that would be your priority date, right? Will that change if approved or not approved? Anna, do you want to clarify for Paul?
Sure. So on the receipt notice, the I-140 receipt notice, it will have a receive date and a priority date listed, and your priority date is the date that USCIS received your petition. So you get that priority date from filing. So the I-140 eventually obviously will need to be approved in order for you to move through to the NVC stage and, get all of that done and eventually to your consular interview. But that priority date gets established the date that USCIS receives that petition. And then once your I-140 is approved, your priority date will also be listed on the I-140 approval notice as well. And it won't change. So it's the date that that the petition reaches USCIS.
Okay, there you go. So Fiaso has a question. He says, "Good day. I became current with the January visa bulletin with a prevailing priority date of June 2022. Congrats to you." His question is, when is it likely for me to get an interview? I think interview ID. Chris, any guesses or advice? Probably going to depend where you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not sure there's much to add there.
Yeah, just going to depend where you are. All right. So let's take another question. We have a question from Melinda. Melinda says, "Good day, ma'am. My question is, I was granted a 10-year multiple entry to the U.S. This coming February 2024 is my first travel to the U.S. How many months will you grant us to stay there, because I will get a back and forth ticket? Thank you so much for your reply."
So
Hannah?
I'm not entirely sure specifically what she's asking. I would have, if she worked with an attorney, it sounds like she's got a visa that she's going to use to travel, but you would want to talk with your attorney. The dates that CBP will use, when you enter, are typically they're going to admit you for the period that's on your visa. So you would definitely just want to talk to an attorney that, maybe helped you get the visa, because this sounds kind of more specific to, kind of a specific situation, and you'll want to check that with them in terms of, travel and what you're able to do on that visa.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Some good advice for Melinda. So we have a question from another Hannah in the comments. Hannah says, "Can we apply even no NCLEX yet? I'm a registered nurse." So Hannah, if you will recall, looking back at our success path, that is your first step. That is your golden ticket. If you are going to apply for an EB3 as a registered nurse to come to the US, you definitely are going to need to pass that NCLEX. You can apply to AMN Healthcare International, and you would be in our system, but we would only be able to start putting you up for interviews and start your immigration process once you have passed that NCLEX. So maybe that's your New Year's goal, Hannah, to pass the NCLEX. All right, so I think I know what the answer from Chris is going to be given a previous question, but let's take Errol John's question. Errol says, "My case is current, June 2022, Philippine national, but until now, the USEM here in Abu Dhabi is not giving interview dates while in Manila. They are giving interview dates with priority dates of July 2022. Your comments about this is highly appreciated. Should Errol switch, or should he consult with his attorney and see what's
the number one thing you want to do is consult with his attorney. My basic rule of thumb is don't switch in a situation.
There you go. There you go, Errol. And if you want to rewind a couple minutes, Chris went into a long explanation with a good example as to why that is his answer. So there you go. All right, so we have a question from Nana. Nana says, "Hello, so I aged out of my F4 family visa in 2022. I'm now waiting to be DQ'd. Can I use my F4 application to my advantage? My priority date for my EB3 is June 2023. Hannah, any advice there?
Yeah, so I'm not, if you have, it sounds like you might have an employment-based petition that was filed. So, I think that, again, this is a situation that you're going to want to talk to an attorney about. But if you have an employment-based petition that you're coming to the U.S. on, then, you should be able to use that petition. You wouldn't be able to cross over the priority dates from a family based to an employment based. But again, it sounds like you might have a little bit of a complicated case, and I would just make sure that you follow up with an attorney to make sure you understand, what options you have available.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. And there you go, Nana. A little bit of rhyming there for everybody. So we have a question from Ellie Cruz. So we did talk a little bit about recapturing priority dates, but it looks like Ellie's looking for more information. Ellie says, I just recently joined the live Q&A. Welcome, Ellie. I'm not sure if it's been asked. Is it possible to recapture your priority dates once you have a new employer? How long will it take to process? Is it accurate information that once your new employer recaptured your priority date and your I-140 has been filed, you can jump to ID immediately, or do we need to go through the whole process? So I think Ellie's just looking for a little bit more information on what that kind of looks like. Hannah, I kind of see you going like this. Maybe you want to take this one.
Yeah, sure. So you can recapture your priority date from your prior employer, and that whole process of recapturing the priority date, it just happens when your new employer files that new I-140 petition. So you have to include evidence of that earlier priority date. So that's typically the I-140 approval notice from your prior employer. So there's no additional processing time for that. It's not a separate process. It just all gets filed with your new I-140 petition. While you will should be able to recapture that earlier priority date, it doesn't allow you to just jump through the process directly to an interview. You still have to get that new I-140 approved. Your case has to move to the NVC. You still have to, provide your civil documents, complete your DS-260 application, and that whole process. Where it helps you is that once you're documentarily qualified, they'll use your prior priority date, and if that's current, then you will be scheduled for an interview. If it's that earlier priority date isn't current yet, then you still get to use that date, but you're going to have to wait till it's current in the visa bulletin before you're going to be scheduled for your interview. So it helps you get an earlier place in the line, but you still have to move through the normal process.
Very interesting. So Ellie, it sounds like, to sum it up, you would still go through the same process as everybody else. And then once you get to that MVC complete stage, if you have a current priority date, you'll be able to move forward, which is great. Or if you don't, you'll still be able to rely on whatever your previous priority date is. So that is some good advice from Hannah and some good information even for me. I learn new things every time I do these shows. So thank you. So we have a question from Mark V. Dino. Mark says, is there an expiry in relation to the immigration process if already DQ'd and just waiting for an interview, since my process is still at MVC for 7 months running? Priority date is current. Chris?
I'm not sure I understood a question there.
Sounds like he's asking if his immigration process could expire if he doesn't kind of move forward.
Yes, it can. He should. Yes, it can. He should continue to move forward. But again, I'm not really sure I understand what he's asking advice on. Maybe okay. Hannah understood something.
Hannah, do you understand the question?
So if this is referring to, normally I think it's probably not at the DQ stage, but when you're at the NVC, if for some reason there's a delay in you submitting the DS-260 application or the fee bill, you want to keep your case alive at the NVC by, submitting an inquiry every 6 months. But if you're at the DQ stage, I don't think you should have that issue. You're just simply waiting for your priority date to become current. I don't know if that answers the question, but.
Okay, well, there's some information for you. Mark, maybe follow up with your attorney if you have some specific questions. So we have a question from Abdul. Abdul says, is it at NVC or embassy that gives the interview date? And how far can agencies go to fight for interview dates for their nurses who are current? Can the embassy be served a plea petition to release the date?
No, they can't. Believe me, your case is obviously very important, but the U.S. Embassy doesn't view your case any more important or your employer's case any more important than anybody else's case. So there's no fight, there's no plea, there's no legal argument. I understand that it appears like it takes a while, but That is unfortunately the process. It's the only process we have. While I'm sure it's frustrating, again, I would probably put my efforts elsewhere than this.
Control what you can control, Abdul. So take your English, make sure that you have passed that if that's something that you're going to be required to pass. Start preparing for your life in the US if you're already that far. It maybe depends what your priority date is, but there's lots of things that you can control in that situation. So we have a question from Jaylu. Jaylu says, may I know the timeline for Perm ETA approval? Are all agency employers have the same timeline? So Hannah, any kind of general guesses on a timeline for a Perm?
Yeah. So if you're going through the Perm process, which would not be any Schedule ARNs, but if you do have a Perm application pending with the DOL, what I've currently seen from Perms that we've filed in my office is, anywhere from 10 to 12 months. It's definitely not a quick process. They do post their processing times online, so you can always check their website there. But I mean, I think that's just kind of a general timeline. But what we're seeing in my office is around 10 to 12 months.
Okay, and that is for a Perm green card. So that might be someone who's like a nurse aide, not a registered nurse that's coming on the EB3 green card, just to clarify for anybody who's just turning in. Okay, so let's take another question. So we have a question from Miriam. Miriam says, we already have the visa, but unfortunately my husband died due to an accident. He is the principal sponsor. Can his dependents still travel to the USA without him? So kind of an unfortunate question. Chris, any thoughts from Miriam?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is obviously very sad, and I want to offer my condolences to the writer. This is such a unique question. I don't think this is a good forum for it. I think you want to contact your attorney who's working on the case to see if you have any options.
There you go, Miriam. And our condolences to you. We are very sorry for your loss. Definitely consult with your attorney to get the best advice for your situation. So it looks like Phoeben has clarified the question. Phoeben says, I think I need to rephrase my question. My case is already approved to be expedited at the U.S. Embassy, Montreal, since I'm living far from Montreal and I have 3 little kids. I need to plan the trip ahead. So if you could tell me the estimated time, I would really appreciate it. So I think we need to look back at Phoeben's original question. Where was
Yeah,
Phoeben's?
I think I took this one. Okay. Again, I think that, you are going to want to consult your attorney. The expedite process, again, it's going to depend on what the caseload is at that specific consulate or embassy that you're going to be moving through. So, it's hard to say once the expedite request is approved, how quickly you're going to see, them schedule you for that interview. I will say that typically once you receive the interview notice, normally the interviews are scheduled for 30 days out from when the notice is. But again, this is, in terms of travel plans, it sounds like that you want to set. I would definitely reach out to your attorney and they may be able to provide you with additional, advice, but it's going to truly depend on the, caseload at the embassy and how quickly they can get you scheduled.
All right, there you go, Phoeben. An answer from Hannah. Hopefully that clarifies for you. So we have a question from Peace. Peace says, my daughter turned 20 on the 2nd of December, 2023. My I-140 was filed March 2023. Will she be able to migrate to the U.S. if I'm not current by December 2024, as she will be 21 years old? So I guess in general terms, when does that kind of cap on age come into effect, if that makes sense? Chris?
Yeah, so the specific answer to the person's question is I don't know, and no one knows because we don't know where your case is going to be in the process. I think he said December of 24 is when his daughter turns 21. So that's number one. Number two, you definitely want to get your attorney involved here. Sometimes some attorneys can get the appointment itself expedited if you're current when a child is aging out. One fact we don't know is how long the I-140 was pending, usually through something called the Child Status Protection Act. The child's age essentially gets reduced by the duration of the I-140. So for instance, if your I-140 was standard processing and it took 6 months, then generally speaking, as long as the child is 21 years and 6 months old, they can still get the visa. So I think that answers both the specific and the general.
There we go. Good information for anybody who may be concerned with their child aging out. Looks like you definitely want to consult with your attorney, because lots of little things that you need to consider, lots of little potential, not going to say loopholes, but different things that may come into play for you. So definitely consult with your attorney. So we are almost closing in on time. I think we have time for one more question. So let's go with the question from Abong. Abong says, if you have a mental illness, will this condition hinder you from immigrating to the USA to work as a registered nurse? Hannah?
Yes. So I can't say specifically on that, if that's going to hinder you, but as part of the, immigration process, when you're getting scheduled for your interview, you have to go through a medical exam, and that would be, something that would likely be disclosed on the medical exam and be provided to the officer at your interview. But that would be, something that the doctor that does your exam would be, determining those types of issues. But Chris, I don't know if you have anything to add for that, but
right. So good news, bad news, right? The good news is the medical condition of mental illness is not a reason to be excluded to the United States, for the main reason that it's not communicable. It's not a disease like a COVID or something that can be spread to others, right? So that's the good news. The unfortunate part of the news is the officer and your employer both have to believe that you are ready, willing, and able to perform the job upon entry into the United States. And so, I'm not a medical professional. My sense is there is a whole slew of mental illness conditions out there. And if your condition is going to prevent you from working as a full-time nurse, that could be a reason that either your job offer is not continued, or the visa office does not grant you the visa. So it's not really. So I guess what I'm saying, it's broader than the mental illness. If there's anything that prevents you from doing the job in a full-time capacity, whether it's mental illness or anything else, that could be a reason why your green card is denied, or for that matter, your job offer is withdrawn, because the employer cannot knowingly pursue a green card petition for someone that they know is not going to be able to perform the job. That would be illegal for the employer to do that. So I wish you the best of luck in your treatment. I'm not a medical or a mental health specialist. So wish you luck in your treatment. You probably do want to talk to your employer and or your attorney if you do think that this is going to be a condition holding back your ability to perform the position.
All right. Thank you, Chris. There's some good information for you, Obong, on what you can do. So thank you to my guests, Chris and Hannah. We are at the hour. If you would like to join us, we have once a month immigration updates with our top immigration experts. So we will have our update next month, and we're keeping our fingers crossed for some good movement on the visa bulletin. We will check back in with everybody then. But until then, I wish everybody a happy new year. Thank you to Chris and Hannah for joining as always and fielding all of our questions. They are very helpful. And happy new year to everybody, and onwards and upwards. See you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks.